No one doubted the power of the United States after the end of the Cold War. China is building up its economy and military very rapidly, so sooner or later it may dare to try to shake the dominance of America in the Asia-Pacific region. Today, more and more countries in various regions have doubts about the US's strength. How will the US Navy defeat China in war? What are the other reasons that China is dangerous? Such audacity as the sea war by China requires, first of all, a very strong navy. But the US already has many other reasons to be concerned about China's capabilities. It is rapidly developing not only its navy, but also other types of military forces that are becoming competitive with the United States. But we'll get to that. Let's start with a quick overview of the US and Chinese Navy. How do they compare? The United States Navy USN remains the top naval power in the world, primarily due to its potent and numerically superior nuclear-powered aircraft carrier fleet. The US Navy's carrier fleet sets it apart significantly from its regional rivals. At the forefront are 10 nuclear-powered carriers of the Nimitz class, which, while rooted in Cold War concepts and technologies, have led the service to invest heavily in the new Gerald R. Ford class. While the old Nimitz class begins to age out, these are being replaced on a one-for-one approach by the new Ford-class supercarriers. Currently, only one of these supercarriers is in active service. Additionally, the carrier force is supplemented by straight-deck amphibious assault ships, primarily designed for rotorcraft operations, but also capable of supporting fixed-wing strike aircraft like the AV-8B and advanced F-35 VTOL aircraft. The bulk of the surface force is made up primarily of the destroyer fleet, comprising 28.8% with 70 ships. The submarine fleet follows a close second, delivering 28% of total strength for the service. The attack submarine fleet consists of all nuclear submarines, including remnants of the Cold War era like the Los Angeles, Ohio, and Seawolf classes, as well as the more modern Virginia-class boats, which are gradually replacing the older Los Angeles vessels. The guided missile cruiser fleet, making up 9.1% with 22 ships, also a product of the Cold War period, is slated for reinvestment with the introduction of a modern frigate design, as the current destroyer-heavy fleet lacks such vessels. The US Navy maintains a functional mine and countermine force, patrol vessels, and the historic three-masted USS Constitution, the oldest active ship afloat. The Navy also operates various support ships that streamline a wide range of naval operations. Beyond this is an aging fleet of littoral combat ships, essentially filling the category of corvettes, and amphibious assault support ships. The service also invests in a capable OPV, 10 ships, and mine countermine warfare fleet, 8 ships, which rounds out the force rather nicely, giving broad solutions to modern battlefield problems. Hulls on order number over 65 and are set to strengthen the destroyer, submarine, carrier, frigate, and amphibious assault groups in the coming decade, attempting to keep pace with global rival China. The People's Liberation Army Navy (PLAN) has achieved remarkable advancements in recent decades, significantly improving its surface and undersea vessel capabilities while expanding its support ship fleet. The number of PLAN ships is nearly twice that of the United States, with 425 ships compared to 243. The overall strength of the Chinese naval forces is now nearing parity with US capabilities more than at any previous point in history. An integral part of its power projection strategy, both regionally and globally, is the growing strength of its fixed-wing carrier fleet, which currently comprises 3 carriers. This force is set to be further reinforced by upcoming indigenous designs, providing enhanced capabilities for operating in blue water environments. The submarine fleet, constituting 16.9% of the total with 72 ships, includes vessels from various classes, and many of them still have substantial operational life, with only a few showing signs of aging. The destroyer fleet is relatively young, with 48 ships, and some of the oldest units have not yet reached 30 years in service. Similarly, the frigate fleet with 44 ships is youthful overall, with only a few exceptions, and it currently comprises more than 40 vessels. The PLAN places particular emphasis on its corvette strength, boasting approximately 70 modern vessels in this category. The mine countermine fleet, composed of 49 ships, distributed across 8 units, is relatively aged, with the youngest being 27 years old. The offshore strength hulls are also approaching a critical stage in their service lives, with the 10 vessels being over 25 years old. The amphibious assault force, consisting of 11 ships, has experienced a resurgence with the introduction of modern vessels designed for helicopter and transport operations from ship to shore. China also possesses 71 corvettes and 127 offshore patrol vessels, OPVs, comprising a significant 29.9% of the fleet. Additionally, 24 vessels are on order, reinforcing the fleet's carrier, submarine, destroyer, and landing helicopter dock (LHD) categories. Overall, the PLAN has made substantial progress in enhancing its naval capabilities. China's naval modernization encompasses a wide range of initiatives, including the introduction of new ships, aircraft and weapons, improvements in maintenance and logistics, the development of naval doctrine, enhancements in fleet personnel quality, education and training of naval personnel, and extensive exercises. Its ultimate goal is to one day challenge the United States as the world's preeminent naval power. So, how close is China now? Currently, the US views the Chinese Navy as a formidable power capable of challenging American naval supremacy in the Western Pacific Ocean during a military confrontation. This presents the primary strategic dilemma for the US military since the conclusion of the Cold War. It's important to recognize that we are witnessing a pivotal juncture of global geopolitical competition. Throughout history, naval arms races and fleet competitions have consistently signaled shifts in global leadership. The competition between the US and China in terms of military capabilities, particularly within their respective navies, represents just one facet of the broader strategic rivalry, encompassing political, diplomatic, economic, technological, and ideological dimensions. The US sees the Chinese Navy as a vital element of China's efforts to challenge the United States, the predominant military power in the Pacific. Over the past 25 years, China has been actively modernizing and expanding its naval capabilities. US analysts have expressed concerns and, in some instances, raised alarms about the speed of growth and advancement in Chinese naval shipbuilding. They closely examine the evolving capabilities of the Chinese Navy when compared to the US Navy and conclude that the United States is gradually losing its competitive advantage. When evaluating the two competitive navies, it's essential to consider differences in ship types. The US Navy has a greater quantity of heavy ships, including aircraft carriers, guided missile cruisers, and destroyers, while the Chinese Navy has a large number of light ships, such as frigates and corvettes, armed with guided missiles. Additionally, US surface warships are equipped with an extensive 9,000 vertical launch missile launchers, whereas the Chinese Navy has approximately 1,000. American warships are technologically advanced, with all the US aircraft carriers being nuclear-powered, while the first 3 Chinese aircraft carriers use conventional propulsion. All American submarines are nuclear-powered, while the majority of Chinese submarines rely on diesel propulsion. Most Chinese submarines are better suited for coastal operations rather than extended ocean voyages. According to the latest Pentagon report on China's military, Beijing has successfully launched its inaugural nuclear-powered guided missile submarines. This development has granted China the capability to launch attacks from both land and sea, a capability previously held primarily by American and Russian vessels. The submarines observed in Chinese shipyards over the past 18 months have been identified as Type 093B guided missile submarines. In the near future, the Chinese Navy will have the capacity to carry out precise, long-range strikes against land targets from submarines and surface vessels using land attack cruise missiles. This enhancement will significantly boost China's ability to project power. Some experts suggest that China's Navy may deploy these submarines as supplementary assets against aircraft carriers and as platforms for land-based attacks, enabling them to strike from much greater distances than smaller attack submarines. It's anticipated that 3 new Chinese submarines could become operational within the next year as part of a broader expansion of the submarine fleet, encompassing both nuclear and diesel-powered vessels, which could reach a total of 65 vessels by 2025. The development of land attack cruise missiles (LARCs) is a pivotal advancement for the Chinese Navy. Furthermore, China's military is on the verge of a breakthrough in making its nuclear submarines significantly quieter and more challenging for the United States and its allies to track. The number of challenges for the United States of America is increasing. American experts have identified specific areas of weakness within the Chinese Navy. including limited interoperability with other branches of the PLA forces, anti-submarine defense capabilities, long-range maritime operations, restricted at-sea resupply capabilities, and a limited number of overseas bases. There are also challenges in training a substantial number of new sailors for the crews of new ships, particularly in the absence of relevant combat experience. Chinese naval personnel are well aware of these limitations and actively work to address them. Beyond its core structure, the Chinese Navy maintains substantial reserves, with the Chinese Coast Guard ranking as the largest in East Asia. This force serves as the coastal or rear component of the Navy, and operating under a centralized mobilization system, incorporates a significant number of civilian fishing vessels. In the event of a conflict with the US, anti-ship ballistic missiles play a pivotal role in China's naval capabilities. Chinese missile forces are armed with two types of medium-range anti-ship ballistic missiles: the DF-21D, boasting a range exceeding 932 miles, and the DF-26, with a maximum range of approximately 2,485 miles. Both systems are deployed on specialized mobile launchers. It's a powerful weapon. Okay, China's got some mean weaponry, but does it have a plan in place for the Sea War? Clearly, the primary theater of military operations would revolve around Taiwan, situated in the Western Pacific region near the South China and East China Seas. Both Washington and Beijing would regard the conflict over Taiwan a pivotal point in the Western Pacific's power balance, as a struggle for dominance in this strategically significant area. Potential Chinese strategies at the outset of the conflict. China initiates a blockade of Taiwan's Matsu Islands to exert pressure on Taiwan for unification talks. Chinese ships and submarines surround various islands and islets. An array of Chinese vessels, including dredgers and fishing boats, support the encircling flotilla. Unexpectedly, the People's Liberation Army launches artillery and rocket attacks on Taiwan's army headquarters in Kinmen. As the bombardment persists, PLA landing ships carrying troops converge on Kinmen's beaches, and numerous helicopters ferry troops to secure crucial strategic positions. Taiwan's military command responds with missile strikes on ports along the Chinese coast and on PLA warships near the island. The island's air defense system also fires surface-to-air missiles at PLA aircraft over the Taiwan Strait. Taiwanese jet fighters engage Chinese fighters and bombers attacking Kinmen. Before the United States and its allies can mount a response, PLA ground forces overwhelm Kinmen's defenders. As the US and Japanese navies approach the Taiwan Strait, Beijing issues warnings about interference and prohibits ships from entering Taiwan's territorial waters without its authorization. The Chinese military deploys around Taiwan to enforce the blockade, intercepting ships attempting to approach the island without Beijing's consent. Taiwan's efforts to maintain open ports for trade quickly succumb to the PLA's superior firepower, effectively isolating the island from the world. Beijing extends the ban on ships entering Taiwan's waters. PLA warships and aircraft are dispatched to strike positions to prevent US and Japanese forces from approaching Taiwan. US and Japanese surface combatants and submarines are deployed to the Taiwan region to break the blockade, with American long-range bombers stationed in Guam and Australia to enhance Allied firepower off the Chinese coast. US and Japanese submarines, the first to reach Taiwan, begin sinking PLA warships, thereby enforcing the blockade. However, China's robust air defense system and anti-ship missile batteries impede efforts to reopen Taiwanese shipping lanes and ports, while Beijing targets US bases in Japan to weaken America's ability to respond. These confrontations lead to significant losses of warships and casualties. Meanwhile, Taiwan's long-range ballistic and cruise missiles target Chinese air bases, military battery radars, and other military installations. Suddenly, the PLA launches extensive air, missile, and cyber attacks against key military and civilian targets across Taiwan, while seeking to hamper American forces and delay their intervention. China places its hopes on advanced weaponry, including the J-20 stealth aircraft, hypersonic missiles, and nuclear torpedoes. Chinese reports indicate that PRC pilots patrolling Taiwan's airspace have already begun firing YJ-21 hypersonic missiles. If the available data suggests their effectiveness, this poses a serious concern for the United States, as the debris could potentially penetrate existing defense systems. In the aftermath of the fleet's defeat, US forces may take refuge in bunkers while monitoring the situation, as PLA forces carry out amphibious and airborne assaults designed to quash Taiwanese resistance. Additional US carrier groups are dispatched to Asia, and US bombers and stealth fighters launch missile strikes against PLA ships and aircraft. China can hope that by the time the United States is fully engaged in the conflict, the war may have ended up with the occupation of Taiwan. But how exactly will the US Navy defeat China in a war? The Pentagon's strategic focus increasingly centers on averting such a scenario. Its objective is to fortify and disperse the US military presence in the Asian region while developing the capacity to counteract the PLA's offensive capabilities and thwart an invading fleet. Additionally, the United States aims to encourage Taiwan to deploy asymmetric assets, including mobile anti-ship missile launchers, mines, and compact missile vessels capable of inflicting substantial damage on Chinese aggressors. This strategy is grounded in the belief that the initial weeks, if not days, of combat would be pivotal in determining the survival of a free Taiwan. Leveraging its overall military advantage, the US could swiftly mobilize ships, aircraft, and submarines from other regions to offset initial losses. It can use its supremacy in the Pacific region beyond the First Island chain, extending from Japan in the north through Taiwan to the Philippines in the south, to conduct sustained assaults on Chinese forces while remaining beyond the reach of Beijing's formidable defenses. Relatively impervious assets like attack submarines and stealth aircraft can exert pressure on Chinese forces and subject them to relentless bombardment. While the concept of hypersonic weapons is attributed to China, recent events in Ukraine highlight concerns that the effectiveness of such weapons may not be as unassailable as previously believed. The US needs to mitigate the severity of a potential Chinese invasion to avoid substantial losses, relying on its global superiority. As China's momentum wanes, the US could employ strategic countermeasures. Owing to the erosion of Fang's command, a Chinese destroyer was hit by 11 American missiles and 3 torpedoes. Safeguarding such an attack is imperative, given that threats could originate from various directions and forms. The use of naval and aerial drones would also play a significant role, thereby weakening the real power of China's fleet. The United States will disperse its aircraft from open bases, deploy Marines around strategic maritime choke points, and position American submarines, some of which will be stationed near Taiwan. The core strategy for American planners encompasses 3 objectives: disrupting Chinese operations within the First Island chain, safeguarding allies within this chain, and achieving naval and aerial supremacy beyond it. The United States faces intricate challenges, including the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, the expansion of China's weapons zone, covering American bases in the Western Pacific, and the sheer scale of Chinese manpower and weaponry that surpasses American capabilities in various categories. For the United States, its most valuable assets lie in its long-range missiles, capable of sinking China's most prized ships and aircraft from a distance. For Taiwan, crucial armaments include short-range missiles, mortars, mines, and rocket launchers capable of decimating an invading fleet. The risk of a Chinese missile or bomber attack diminishes with increased distance, yet even Guam, a major American military hub situated 1,864 miles from China, remains vulnerable due to the inadequacy of American air defenses and the scarcity of passive defenses, such as concrete aircraft hangars. The strategy revolves around distributed lethality, involving the dispersal and constant movement of forces to avoid presenting an easy target while retaining the capacity to assemble and coordinate during offensive actions. American military operations would rely on joint forces, in which distinct types of troops and weapon systems complement one another. Warplanes would disperse from large bases, regroup in the air for combat, and land wherever available on patches of land. The logistics challenge would center on delivering fuel and ammunition to the necessary locations. One of the objectives of this flexible combat deployment is to compel China to deplete its sizable yet finite missile stockpile. To ensure survival, American surface vessels would likely refrain from direct combat operations near Taiwan, instead focusing on providing air defense for bases like Guam and obstructing Chinese trade. They would periodically enter and exit the danger zone to engage Chinese ships and aircraft. At the onset of a conflict, the critical task of sinking the Chinese invasion fleet, vital for Taiwan's defense, will primarily fall on submarines and long-range bombers. The United States possesses a numerical advantage in submarines, maintaining its edge in submarine warfare. These attack submarines are equipped with torpedoes, cruise missiles, and sea mines, However, they will eventually deplete their ammunition and need to retreat for resupply, rendering them vulnerable, potentially in places like Guam. Bombers operating from Hawaii, Alaska, and the continental United States will employ ammunition that can be launched from altitudes beyond the reach of Chinese anti-aircraft missiles. Nevertheless, America's long-range anti-ship missiles, with a range of 200 nautical miles or more, will likely run out within a week. Subsequently, American forces have to redeploy closer to Taiwan to engage and neutralize the enemy's ships. The hope is that China will also exhaust its long-range ammunition reserves by that point. The United States could also implement jamming techniques that are significantly more powerful than the Chinese fleet's communication signals. Through the radars on Chinese ships, targets can be detected at distances 60 times less than those achievable by their US counterparts. After an initial strike, a third of the destroyer's anti-missile defense potential would be depleted, with only half of the surface-to-surface missiles capable of intercepting incoming offensive missiles. This strategy could help counter the first wave of enemy missile attacks on military bases and aircraft carrier groups. Will it represent a genuine victory for the United States? The aftermath of the early stages of the war had devastating consequences, impacting both the victors and the defeated. The Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, conducted simulations for nearly 24 war scenarios. The United States and Japan faced substantial losses, including dozens of ships, hundreds of aircraft, and thousands of troops. These losses would have long-term repercussions on the US global position. In most scenarios, the US Navy lost 2 aircraft carriers and 10 to 20 significant surface combatants. Approximately 3,200 US troops lost their lives in just 3 weeks of combat, nearly half of the casualties suffered by the US in 2 decades of engagement in Iraq and Afghanistan. China also took a heavy toll. Its navy was decimated, its core amphibious forces suffered defeat, and tens of thousands of soldiers were taken captive. The report estimates that China would endure the loss of around 10,000 troops, 155 combat aircraft, and 138 capital ships. The outlook for Taiwan in these scenarios is grim. Even if a Chinese invasion does not succeed, despite Taiwan's resilient military, it would be left to defend a shattered economy on the island. Devoid of electricity and basic services, the island's military would face approximately 3,500 casualties, and its entire fleet of 26 destroyers and frigates would be sunk. Japan would likely lose more than 100 warplanes and 26 warships, while US military bases on Japanese soil would come under attack from China as reported. The economic costs would also be significant. In 2016, the RAND Corporation projected that a one-sided war for Taiwan would reduce China's GDP by 25 to 35% and America's by 5 to 10%. The consulting company Rhodium Group's 2022 analysis indicated that disruptions in the semiconductor supply, with Taiwan producing 90% of the world's current computer chips, would result in a global shortage of electronic goods, leading to substantial economic losses. World security and US status would be compromised. But there are other reasons that China is dangerous. Chinese nuclear weapons represent a global concern for the United States. Additionally, the challenge lies in China's ability to rapidly enhance its capabilities by acquiring more advanced weaponry. China is presently in the process of developing a new generation of submarines equipped to carry nuclear warheads. The integration of Russian technology is expected to significantly improve the stealth capabilities of these submarines, rendering them far more difficult to detect and track. Analysts and defense experts anticipate the completion of these advanced Type 096 nuclear submarines by the end of this decade. Naval intelligence analyst Christopher Carlson has described these new Type 096 submarines as a nightmare due to their anticipated extreme elusiveness. Another obstacle is securing air superiority for the United States. China deploys a combination of Russian-manufactured and domestically produced air defense systems, with the capacity to monitor and engage enemy aircraft. China's air defense arsenal includes the formidable Russian-built S-300 and S-400 surface-to-air missile systems, renowned for their global effectiveness. The latest versions of the S-400 and the upcoming Russian S-500 missiles are interconnected, thanks to high-speed computer processing that enables precise, long-range threat detection. These systems offer extended range and heightened sensitivity compared to their predecessors. Furthermore, China presents a potential threat through its drone capabilities. The primary goal of the United States is to force China into using its valuable missile resources to eliminate a multitude of cost-effective and easily accessible unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. In the early stages of the conflict, China can employ a similar strategy against the limited US forces. Drones are positioned to bolster reconnaissance capabilities, neutralize air defense systems, target naval vessels, and more efficiently deplete enemy resources. China is actively progressing in its drone programs and expanding its production efforts. The outcome of a possible drone confrontation between the United States and China remains uncertain, but these unmanned systems have the capacity to yield significant advantages and disadvantages for both parties. The rise of China as a global and regional power poses significant challenges and risks for the United States. The US Navy remains a formidable force, but their victory over China would be very expensive. China's rapid military modernization in the naval domain has raised great concerns about the balance of power in the Asia-Pacific region. China's developments in nuclear submarines, advanced missile systems, and air defense capabilities have added to its overall military capability, challenging US dominance in the region. The potential for conflict in the Taiwan Strait is a main point in this competition. The US has been strategizing to counter potential Chinese aggression, emphasizing the importance of the First Island chain and naval and air superiority beyond it. The simulation of various war scenarios underscores the devastating consequences of such a conflict for all parties involved, so it shows that the US should react to the current weak points in its strategy. Do you think the US can overcome challenges in the future? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more military analysis from military experts.